Welcome to the Market Musings podcast with Doc Holliday. Now, we had Doc on for our 50th anniversary podcast, and we're trying a bit of a new format for our Musings podcast where there will be 3 rather than 2, and that is, of course, the third person being Doc. So, hi Doc, welcome back, and how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's good to be back on the show, and thanks for asking me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And Kenny, our third person up in Scotland, how are you?
Yeah, there's probably enough of me for number 3 and fourth
Probably.
person, to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I'm all right. How are you, Doc?
I'm good. It truly has been an inspirational week in the markets this week. When you see some of the crazy moves, I think I've probably ended the week with a bit of egg on my face with Braveheart because I've been quite critical of that company, but I'm almost certain that the testament of time shall prove me to be correct. But who knows? It's great for investors. It's good for the market. And whilst we see some of these ludicrously overvalued companies, it's definitely presenting opportunity for investors and more liquidity in the market. So always a positive to any negative, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What is Braveheart? I've never heard of that apart from the film.
So a great film as well.
It's a good film.
That Kenny can tell us all about. I've been to the Wallace Monument. It's a great place. But look, Braveheart's an investment company. They've got a number of different investments which have been hinged now around this whole COVID situation. So when COVID-19 happened, they kind of turned the company into a bit of a COVID investment vehicle, and they originally went down the route of producing hand sanitizer. They were going to sell 20,000 litres a day over X amount of days per year and make 10 million quid free cash flow. They never sold a single bottle of it, to my understanding, and quickly moved into antibacterial masks. So now they've got a proof of concept in some testing kit, but they don't have a license, and they've got some orders for a mask that they don't, up to 1 million masks, but yet they don't produce a mask yet. So it's quite an interesting one because they don't have a license and they don't actually have they don't have the masks to sell, but yet they still find themselves with a £10 million market cap, having seen their share price go up about 400% off the lows. Fabulous.
Yeah, right. Just while we're on COVID, I've actually seen something today that the government have admitted paying some of these track and trace people £6,000 a day. You know, it's just crazy. Yeah, I seen it earlier on. It flashed up.
What's the people that's job it is to see if a flight's been infected and ring people who are on that flight? They get what, £6,000 a day?
£6,000 a day, yeah, which is just astronomical. There's, every disaster or war or something major that happens in the economy, there's always winners. There's always people making money. But no, Braveheart, Doc, isn't a company I've really followed, so I'll take your word on that one. I mean, there's been quite a few companies, Doc, that are absolutely flying at the moment. And obviously, the 2 standout ones in October would probably be, I would say, Alba and
you're killing me. Yeah, go on.
No, I'm talking about market cap here. The ones from standout market cap wise, and UFO, which was absolute flying over the last couple of days. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Well, listen, Kenny, flying, I would have thought that I would have put my money on one flying in, an alien getting out, and actually me spending a bit of time talking to him. That would be more likely to happen than seeing the share price of that company at a market cap of 75 million plus when I last looked. It's absolutely insane. This is a business that was regurgitating assets from, I think it's somewhere down in Mexico. They'd realised that silver wasn't very popular back then. They quickly jumped into some lithium. They had a bit of an auger drill on site. They were drilling for lithium in some old fucking salt lake. That didn't really go to plan, and it's been spun out and spun around for long enough for the market to come to it. And suddenly silver's popular, and you've got a huge collection, as we understand. But not only have you got a big collection, they've got a bigger market cap, because that's ludicrous. I mean, that company literally is built on hot air, piss and wind. But there we go. I mean, again, I don't look great right now when I talk about Braveheart or the likes of Alba or even UFO. But let me tell you, I'd be surprised if one of them's still doing well in 6 months' time, but let's wait and see.
Yeah. You say the positives for these things is there's plenty of new money sloshing about in the markets, and it's got to find a home. There'll be plenty of people who have made a few bob in these risers, so they'll be looking for for new shares to invest in. And what it does as well is, I'm sitting there with obviously one of my favourite companies is Pearl Metal Resources, and I'm sitting there thinking it's 12 million maybe. Is that a bit toppy? This was 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then when you see companies like Alba and UFO, going up to 50 and 75 and 80 million quid, you're like, actually, no, it's nowhere near it. So it's they kind of drag everybody else along with it as well. So
that's what's happening. There's no doubt about it. All of this really started and was born out of the whole lockdown, people getting furloughed, and I think the COVID stats going bangers. It's all sort of really contributed massively to the recovery in the market. Certainly in the sort of retail space, or the tier 3, the sort of smaller, more junior, speculative end of the market, it's definitely contributed to it. You've got lots of people sitting at home that have been furloughed, that have got mortgage breaks. So they've got 80% or 85% of their income coming in, and they don't need to pay the mortgage, and they can't go down the booze and have a couple of pints or go and bet on the horses. So what else do they spend the money on? Suddenly they all want to be stock traders. So I think there's been a huge amount of opportunity on the back of this. And as you say, big positives. People kind of think that I'm pissing on the chips if we talk about companies getting overvalued. It's great for investors. More power to these guys that are making small fortunes. It's been a good sort of summer for lots and lots of people, myself included. And with companies that I don't like go up 4 times the money, well, yeah, I might not like them, but at the same time, I don't decry any man making a turn in the market. We're all taking big risks every day. So again, more the power to the investors and all the best to them. But like you say, start diversifying quickly.
What do you think? What's caused have they released any news that has caused this kind of rush of interest in UFO, or is it just sort of is it just like a random surge of interest?
A change of management team. So look, they've changed the management team, they've changed the story a little bit, but the assets are ultimately the same assets. So
right, okay,
So it's a change of the board of directors, really.
Yeah, okay. So it's more of a buying into a new story, or the name even's probably quite attractive, isn't it? Alien probably is quite attractive, and the ticker UFO probably does quite a lot of good for its attention on the stock market as well. Okay.
Yeah, so Doc, as you know, I'm a bit of a bottom feeder. I like to look at the stuff right at the bottom of the market that a lot of people probably wouldn't even touch. And to be fair, probably Alba and UFO had their days at the bottom of the barrel. Are you looking at anything at the bottom of that barrel at the moment that's caught your eye, like potentially be the next UFO?
Look, there's loads of things that catch my eye, Kenny. Whether you're making a short-term trade or you sort of have a longer time horizon on it is the thing that is the question we need to ask ourselves. I think there's lots and lots of evidence of companies, in addition to Alba and UFO, that have seen meteoric rises. We've got companies like Mosman Oil and Gas that have come off the bottom 200 or 300% up. Canadian Overseas Petroleum, arguably Fat Arthur is one of the worst, greediest directors from a remuneration perspective, yet they see their share price go up. Great Western Mining, dead in the water for a long time. Their share price has gone up 300 or 400%. Bazant Resources. So we can really reel them off. So, one of the ones that obviously I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is Nostraterra Oil and Gas. And, arguably the company's been a total disaster for investors, myself included. I've had numerous positions over the years. One I did very well on, a penny up to 5p. One that I've not done very well on, at 2p down to 0.25p. And then I've recently bought the shares again, and they're going in the right direction. I think when you look at the peer group, the Mosmans, the Canadian Overseas, and other companies of a similar ilk, whether we think that Matt Lofgren's a great guy or an awful CEO, or whether we actually love the company, the market is frothy over these types of plays, and they're in a unique situation because I think they've got a 2 million market cap and a free carry on the drill that's upcoming. So there's very little risk for them. They're going to get drilling, no risk to Nostraterra. quite interested in the valuation cycle?
Yeah, I must admit I've got some Nostra Terra shares myself. In fact, Mark, you had Matt on the podcast. Was it last week or the week before? I think.
Yeah, I had Matt on the podcast. Yeah, on the interview. Yeah, nice guy. Yeah, looking to pick up some some decent little oil plays over in the States.
Yeah, I think it's Permian Basin, isn't it?
Mm.
So I think the Permian is. I think the Permian Basin is once you come outside of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East and sort of these big producing sort of well-known Iraq, these countries that are just historically well known for producing. The Permian Basin actually was I think it was the third or fourth largest oil field or was it in the world, or it was going to become that big based on the growth matrix that they've been predicting at the time. Now, things sort of slowed down. There was a big boom over in the Permian a few years ago, and things sort of slowed down and it become unpopular, I think, probably because oil price crashed. I mean, producing oil at the same cost per barrel is the difficulty when you're coming outside of the Middle East. And I think some of the heat and hoo-ha baloo around it had sort of softened. But yeah, I mean, there was a recent article that went out sort of targeting these mom and pop producing fields around the Permian, and Nostra Terra have got a basket of them. So they're not particularly rock and roll. They're not 10,000 barrels a day, but it's about producing and making a return. And if they can get to free cash flow or certainly break even, then that starts to look quite compelling when you've got a company with £2 million market cap that's got a reserve-based loan. Your banks don't give RBLs to small speculative companies. Most of these companies are always being run by, sort of spivvy equity issues. They've got an RBL in place, I think, with Washington Federal Bank or somebody like that, West Texas Capital Bank, I can't quite remember. And that's based on that. That's held against their production. So it means that the bank are happy to give the company a little bit of freedom to cash because they're satisfied that they've got the production to back that up. So the assets are legitimate.
And they recently raised, didn't they? They raised, what, $500,000 just recently as well?
£500,000, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's so far that debt will take you. So the thing with an RBL is that's going to be held against an asset that's existing and producing and generating revenue. But if you want to kind of run a PLC, it's a little bit like when you get these debt partners that go into much bigger companies. They're happy to kind of give companies money to sink into the ground where they can get a return against it. What they don't really want to do is pay to, fund companies' crazy ideas of speculating in some faraway land or paying these really horrific remuneration packages that we may have seen with some of the companies over the years. So I think the RBL is to be used for asset-based finance, whereas PLCs need to be issue equity in order to finance the rest of the business. There's a lot more to just running a company than drilling a well and
definitely a vote of confidence, isn't it? What fair value would you put on that? Because $2 million is cheap, isn't it?
I think if we'd go back a year or two, some people would say 2 million is $1 million more than it should be. I think when you look at the peer group that they're in, it's massively undervalued compared to its peers, and it's much further down the line because they've got proven assets. They've got banks that are prepared to back them. They've got the guy who's joined the board not too long ago, Steve Staley. When 88 Energy went from a third of a penny up to about 5 pence, Steve Staley and Dave Wall were the guys that were instrumental in that. He's joined the board as chairman. So you've got somebody on board. He was also the executive chair at Upland Resources. So, Dr. Steve Staley is not somebody to be sniffed at. He's been popular in the market. So I think the way that the market conditions are, we see some crazy things going on. And it wouldn't be too crazy to expect to see Nostra Terra at 5 or 10 million market cap. And if we go back a couple of years ago, I bought these shares at about 2 pence a share, and they were 8 million in the market back then. We know that Miton have just joined the register for a bit more too. They were holding about 4 or 5% of the company. They've almost doubled their stake in the business too. So, Gervais has not had a good time at Mighton over the last year or so. Lots of fund managers. The Woodford Capital's situation has not been a secret. Fund managers have been in the public eye for all the wrong reasons, but Gervais is still in the game, and he thinks it's worth backing. So institutions are buying it. I mean, it's a 2 million market cap market, speculative, but yeah, I think there's probably 1 or 2x in it if we're lucky.
And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, maybe Kenny correct me, when I spoke to him, he was telling Matt Loughran, that is, of NTOG, he said that the assets they have are profitable at low barrel oil prices.
Yeah, so I think they're looking to get to cash flow positive.
Yeah.
$40 a barrel.
No,
so
$30
$30 was it? Right. So
yeah. I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah, it was. He said, cash flow at $30 per barrel. Yeah.
And I think next year, the way that the oil market works, and I'm no expert, but they have something called the forward-looking curve. And what that does is it predicts the value of oil in the future. So when oil crashed, when the COVID situation first broke out, and oil went from $60 all the way down to, was it $20, $15? They were selling the following month's contracts at a loss. Actually, it was a situation where we can't, because these things are sold at industrial scale on a month-by-month contract, and they couldn't give them away at one point because there was nowhere else to store the oil. So once you've got all of this oil in the world, there's nowhere to store it. They'd accumulated so much oil. There was a big concern of what we're going to do next, because with an oil well, you can't just turn it on and off either. Once it's running and it's pressurized, it's not something that you can just turn off and on a switch. So it was getting really sort of concerning. As the world's opened up, people started to move around a little bit more. Jets have gone in the air, consumption's gone up, and they've been able to tailor the production a little bit. They've got back on top of it, but the forward-looking curve for next year tells us that we're going to see $50 oil plus now. So, arguably, if you're profitable at $30, at $50, you're doing really well. So, we're looking at the industry standard of the forward-looking curve, and that looks quite encouraging, both for Nostra, but for many, many other companies too.
Yeah, just to finish off on Nostra, and not many people picked up on it during the day. There was a large trade of about £175,000 went through, and it wasn't matched or crossed or anything. So that was a bit strange. That's about 7% of the company in one trade. So, don't know what to read. Don't know what to read into that, but I'm quite happy with Nostra as well. It's just a wait and see for me. So, yep.
Well, it's a horror story for lots of people. So there's going to be loads of folks out there that invested in this 4 or 5 years ago that's gone horribly wrong, and they feel cheated and now done to. And that's unfortunately one of the side effects to buying these things, Kenny. So I think you and I and Mark, if he's got an interest, or anybody else for that matter, you've got to have a little bit of sympathy for other people who've been less fortunate.
Yeah.
And nearly every one of these stories of AIM companies have got them characters that are still kicking around, out the money and suffering because they got their entry wrong or the company disappointed. So I think that the same with one of the saving graces for Alba is there'll be lots of people that have actually sat on that for a couple of years, feeling the pain every day, and that can now look in the mirror and say, you know what, I've actually got all my cash back, or I've made a nice profit. So you've got to take that after them.
Yeah, one thing I've been looking at as well, Doc, and I've actually invested in a couple myself, is some of the cash shells that are floating about in the market at the moment. I mean, one in particular, I'll bring it up because it's got a kind of similar story to sort of Nostra. Obviously, there's lots of people have lost money in the various reincarnations of this company. So at the moment it's called Attis Oil and Gas, and it's currently a cash shell. And I think before that it was Mayan Energy. But I think it's probably 4 or 5 names in the last 10 years. I don't know if you know much about that.
It was North Coast Petroleum before that, and then there was actually a Randy something. A real sort of, I met him at an investor event, a big sort of Midwest Texan type character, big heavy boy. I think he wore a Stetson as well, and he was at an investor event, and he was all, chewing on a bit of straw and telling everybody how he was going to make them millionaires overnight, and it didn't quite come to pass. But it would appear that that's been through a couple of different transitions, but yeah, there's with one man's failings presents an opportunity for the next man, and Attis has now been recreated and looking for a transaction, and we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I mean the valuation of cash shells as well is always up for debate. It's something that you think, what is a clean shell in the market worth? No debt and restructured, and what is it, $500,000, $1 million? I suppose it depends on what the cycle in the what the cycle in the market is. If everything's flying, I'm sure back in 28, 29, 2010, they were saying like cash shells of like £2 million valuation alone. But again, it just depends what stage you're at in the market.
But if you're buying them, you don't know what's going to happen, do you? So is it it's a pure kind of punt, really.
So the thing to look at with those things is where the hidden value might be, and that could be down to changes of management. So you've had, you've got the likes of ADV, and that was Anderlas. You've got Attis, that was mine. There's a whole bunch of them, and it's about trying to find is there a change in management there, or if you've got major shareholders. So we talked about Motive Bio when we were last on, and the theory there was quite simple, and that is Hercules. We're gonna want to see a return on the $20 million investment. So if you've got a change in management, you've got strong major shareholders that are still involved, or big tax losses. So obviously, you guys have talked a bit about ECR over the years. They've got the Australian vehicle with big tax losses that could potentially be utilised, and that was always attractive at one point or another in time. So I think we've got to kind of look for where the hidden value is. Shells go through a real obvious cycle with popularity, and as one or two of these come to deliver big returns, they get really popular. And we're seeing that with Peterhouse Corporate Finance are really getting behind reforming some of these companies and refinancing them. And we're seeing companies that are going into the tech space with people like Chris Akers involved, and then people are speculating just based on that individual on what could come next. So you get a couple of decent ones do well. Shells are back in vogue, and suddenly we all want to get involved again. But let me tell you, it doesn't always go like that. I backed a company called Life Science, something Life Science it was called. It was a Jim Mellon company. He'd got his 25-year business partner on board with him. He had £1 million in cash with £1 million market cap. And a bit like you, Kenny, I still have the shares on my account to tell the tale. It was one of the only companies, or few companies, I've ever disclosed the TR1 against. And it was the biggest mistake I ever made, because it didn't come off. Share suspended, and I've become a statistic on it. So it's not all sort of rock and roll and sweetness and light. But you know what? When you get them right, and we're seeing it with companies like it was called YOLO, and it changed its name again, become something else. I can't think what it was, but people listening in will know the company. Chris and the gang got behind that one. I think it went up about 30x. So, there's mega money to be made as well. And if you're prepared to have a go, speculate a bit too much, don't throw the kitchen sink, and you can make a turn on it. I think there's some good opportunities out there.
Yeah, definitely. Just one thing you touched on there, it was ECR, when you were talking about tax losses there. The burning question is, Doc, have you picked your name for the drill rig? Have you put your entry in?
Yeah, you know what? I wasn't really aware of that, so no, I've not.
I didn't know about
that. No,
is that a competition Craig's doing? Is it?
Yeah, so I think I think you've got to the 23rd, which is probably next Friday, to put in your a name for the new drill rig you bought. So there's some belters in there. I mean, I've went for a James Bond theme, and I picked Skyfall with one of my Stirling Bridge account, and I think Scaramanga with my my other account. So I suppose it's just a bit of fun. But I mean, the ECR's been romping along sort of nicely this week as well. It's just been doing 5% a day here and there. And I mean, today the market was this is Friday. Obviously, the market was very, very good today. I think it was up 12%.
Yeah, finished up 12.
So
I noticed you post on it quite a lot as well, Doc.
Yeah, I've got a decent exposure to it. So I think that it's one of those things that after all of the years of my involvement with ECR, I mean, been involved in this company all the way back to the days when Patrick Hartford was in. So, go back to the days when Mr. Paul Johnson was just a mere mortal investor, and they were quite rightly so as well at the time. They were putting themselves together at an AGM to actually start looking to get some changes to management because they were getting they believed that they were getting shortchanged, and that was probably 2011 or 12 or something like that. So that I've been involved with that company all the way back to them days, and there's been some really good times and not so good times. And I think with ECR, it's something that I've backed and I've funded at certain points, and I've traded and lots of different relationships with that company and different management over the years. But I think they're in a good place because, a bit like lots of these things we talked about today, the market is actually coming to them. They're in the right. A year ago or two, you couldn't give that Victoria asset away for a couple of shekels. Now people are queuing up to get involved, and I just think, you know what, the belief that all the low-hanging fruit had been picked in Victoria was total nonsense, because what we're seeing now is lots and lots of other companies around it doing exceptionally well, and ECR seemingly got the right postcode. So yeah, good luck to them. I like it. I think it's got a good opportunity. I think if they deliver nothing but a bit of piss and wind, it'll probably be back to 1p. If they go and do a deal with the third largest mining company in the world, I think it's 10p. So it's one of those situations. It's a binary bet. I'm in for some decent cash. If it goes wrong, it'll hurt me quite badly in the pocket, and if it goes right, it should help to the pension fund.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting play. I mean, obviously, I have to spend a bit of time looking at all these mineral mapping systems in Australia, and I was actually looking at GeoVic today, and every day I think there was 3 donkey license applications went in today for Victoria, and obviously the prime land is gone, but I mean, just anything that's available is just getting picked up now. It's just going non-stop. You would think eventually it would slow down, but it's not slowed down since February. So,
well, I think the reality is, can the market realistically see? And I know lots of people are speculating gold $3,000 and $4,000, and there's lots of wild speculation, and these markets always get overly carried away with the belief of where things can go. But the question I ask myself, and I don't know what your view is, lads, is, do I see COVID going anywhere soon? Do I see that uncertainty suddenly evaporating? And if the answer to that is no, then I don't see gold collapsing, because it's been the longest storer of wealth and insulator of risk and uncertainty since time began, I think. So, I don't see gold going anywhere soon. And on that basis, I can imagine lots and lots of gold stocks doing very well and lots of acreage getting hoovered up as a result. I don't know what your view is, but that's mine.
Yeah, I'd second that view.
Yeah, but if you actually look at the gold price just now, I'm trying to think, when did it spike? With the early 80s, it spiked about, was it $800 an ounce? And if I think you do the equivalent today, that's $10,000 an ounce. So in theory, it's still got a long way to go. If you use that as an example from the early 80s, I would need to Google it. It was either late 70s or early 80s. It spiked to.
Look, I don't know how much you've ever looked into this, and I'm sure you're more mining than me. I'm not a mining extremo in any way, shape, or form. I'm just a passenger on the journey. But I think this is it. Once the contracts and actual investment in gold globally, there's only actually 1/10 of it available in physical format, and therefore, should the world's the number of patrons or investors in gold ever call in that contract into a physical format, you would never be able to supply it, and that's where the explosion would come from. I mean, there's not that much more gold being found in comparator to the amount of money that's invested in it. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, what are the stats on it, Kenny? You're kind of into all this.
Mark's got a better stat in silver.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention the silver, yeah. And I know you're into your silver, and I like silver. But taking what you just said, Doc, yeah, it's a similar story with silver, but far worse. And it's something like, I read it a while ago, that, yeah, if everyone who holds a paper contract for silver stood to deliver that physical silver. There's not enough silver in the world, mined or unmined, 20 times over to deliver that physical silver. So yeah, it's basically it's a paper market, and that's why it's out of whack effectively.
And arguably, I suppose that's why you can see those kind of crazy moves that you'd seen in the 80s, and that can potentially happen again at any point in time. Is that if there's ever a big demand and people call in those contracts, then suddenly we're going to see things go bangers. And with uncertainty, becomes people looking to find a form of insulation, and precious metals always been that. So silver and gold, I don't see it having a bad time over the next year or two, and potentially we could have a right old move if we get lots of people calling them in.
Yeah, I've liked silver for a while. I bought some bars in the past, but the bars are not as collectible as the coins, so I actually flogged all my bars. And probably a couple of months ago, I set my target of 1,000 ounce of silver. So I'm sitting about 170 ounces at the moment, and I'm just going to keep buying it, get to 1,000 ounce, stick it away 5 years. I mean, my wife thinks I'm off my head, and she's probably a bit pissed off that I'm spending £500-600 in a tube of silver coins every other week. But no, I mean, I've seen the predictions of $300 an ounce for silver. So to me, it's just a wee bit of diversification. I'm doing the Forex. I've got the silver now, and I'll just keep buying. And 1,000 ounces is not a lot, but when you break it down, it's still the guts of 25 grand to buy. So it's a chunky. It's a chunky amount of money.
Well, listen, Kenny, if Armageddon is to happen, which has been long suggested by all of these guys in the crypto communities with Bitcoin, we've heard it recently as a result of COVID, that economies will collapse and we'll go into a Mad Max type situation. But look, if financial Armageddon never takes place, you having your mattress, propped up with silver coins is probably going to make you look like a very, very clever guy, whereas I'll probably end up in the shit. So, I think there's multiple arguments to have physical precious metal, definitely. Yeah, what about you, Mark? I mean, how much of this sort of stuff have you got under your pillow?
I don't have any at the moment. No, but that's changing, I hope, soon. Thankfully, due to just a number of changes that have happened recently, I find myself with a little bit of extra cash. So I've always wanted to. I had the idea years ago that I would buy. What was it? I wanted to buy it's a Britannia, isn't it? A gold Britannia. It's that's an ounce, isn't it? Yeah, of gold. And I wanted to buy one of them every year. And I've wanted to do that since about 2016 or something. I haven't managed yet. But yes, I think I'll be purchasing some silver very soon. With the help of Kenny and his various sources that he can extract that from, and maybe some gold sovereigns as well. No, I'd love to have some physical stuff. It's nice. I think I've never touched it, but I imagine it feels very nice, and I can almost imagine Kenny sat there on a Friday night, just put with his fingers over the coins.
Tube up and
down. Yeah, well, I did actually buy some carrot bars as well, which are they're quite unique. I think it's like a gold mine in Turkey. I think it's called Nadir, and they produce these banknotes that I've got the ones I've got is 0.1 of a gram embedded into the note. So I bought 100 of them as well, just because I could. There's no other reason. I'll probably try and sell 50 and make some money back and just keep 50. Just something different again, because I don't know. I'm not seeing the
market. Sure, you weren't a magpie in a past life, Kenny.
Yeah, I've done a few strange things in my life, Doc. So I have career choices and things like that. But I must admit, I do like. I've got a massive collection of 50 pences and some of the rare £2 coins as well, and some of the rare pound coins that no longer exist. So I do have sort of 300 or 400 of them downstairs as well, and some of them are worth. I think the £2 coins from the Commonwealth, some of them are worth 50 or 60 quid now. So there's value in everything. So there is, and I just started that collection off by, the change you were getting. I'll take that, and then you start being silly. You're out for a drink with your mates, and did you got a load of 50 pences in your change? And so let me see them. And you would, if there's any decent ones, you would take them. So it was a bit strange, but yeah, I'm a bit of a magpie that way, I suppose.
Well, listen, if you can turn that into, if you can make a turn doing that, again, all the power to you, fella, because I think, people are sometimes when they're in the markets, they're happy to trade in these securities. They never see anything for them. They're just numbers on accounts. At least what you're doing is you're getting something that you can put in your hand and hold. And as Mark said, and it can feel good as well. So, I mean, it sounds like a winner.
I've got nothing else I can hold in my hand, Doc. You know what I mean? So I've got to hold something in my hand.
Yeah, well.
I've seen it's Friday and I've not had a beer yet. But no, I mean, all the silver coins were bought with winners from AIM. So, yeah, it's just a bit of diversification. And it started out as a wee bit of fun, but now I'm like, do you know what? No, I'm going to do 1,000 ounces.
So what about diamonds? Because, I mean, I've held some shares in a company called Blue Rock Diamonds for quite a long time, and I saw them go from 50p where I bought them, or around that level, all the way to £1.30 intraday. Never sold them, and then it collapsed as a result of COVID and restrictions in South Africa. They're back there. They went down to 30, 40p, raised some money at 35. Sadly, didn't get offered it. And they're back up at sort of 55, 60 now, having weathered the storm. Now, there's long been an argument that diamonds are either going to make you poor very quickly or they're going to make you rich very quickly. I think there's some evidence coming out now in the press, although arguably De Beers are controlling the current situation. That is that diamond prices are starting to come up off the floor, and I'm hoping that we see some of these companies come off the knees. Blue Rock's only a small one, I think 5 million market cap, but they're selling diamonds, and a bit like some of these little things, I like to see companies that can generate a bit of cash too, and they've sold a couple of batches of diamonds for about, I think, $1.5 million this year. So they're actually selling their own produce, and yeah, should they be able to ramp up, which is the plan, that'll be generating cash and cash flow positive too. So, any thoughts on diamonds or even on Blue Rock?
So just when you're talking about diamonds there, I was frantically searching. I could remember the ticker, but I couldn't remember the name of the company. It's a diamond company. It's had a bit of a fall from grace. I don't know the history of it. Firestone Diamonds.
PDL, but they're getting swallowed up in debt. I mean, that thing could go and do 20x PDL, but it's really struggling in the debt situation. That's the company you're referring to, isn't it?
No, it was Firestone Diamonds I was thinking of.
Fucking hell, yeah, that's a bag of shit though, isn't it?
I don't know the story on it at all. Right. I just knew it's had a large fall from grace, so it has. But no, diamonds is something I've never really looked at. But I tell you what, when I'm looking about in Australia and I'm being a nosy bastard at all the historical reports, etc., the amount of companies that were actually looking for diamonds in just about every state in Australia is unbelievable, especially back in the 80s and 90s when obviously they were in vogue. But I mean, I don't know enough about the diamond story to say how much comes out of Australia. I don't think there's that much, to be honest, but they certainly looked for them, so they did. Certainly did.
I think there's something like 800 kimberlite deposits in the world discovered, and then I think 80 of them or 10% of them are actually commercial. So I think what you find with the diamond game is if you find something of genuine interest, it'll reward you like massively. But you can find lots of diamonds, particularly like alluvial diamonds that you just sort of dig up and crush and sort of separate. A bit like the gold game, isn't it? When you look at the discovery programs on cable where they kind of work in small sort of operations. I think there's loads of those sort of diamonds all over the world, these little illegal diamond mines and stuff like that. But the actual commercial ventures, particularly kimberlite and not the subsurface mines, rather than the dig up and go type plays. I think there's not many of them that are paying out. So
what about Botswana diamonds? Have you heard of them?
Botswana diamonds, was that not one of the things that John Teeling was involved in?
Yeah, it's John Teeling. Yeah, that's right. And we had him on the podcast the other week, didn't we, Kenny?
Well, he makes good whiskey.
Yeah, I'm yet to try it, but there's a second vote for it. Then I need to order some up.
I mean, it's a fact that I think is it the Cooley or Cool something distillery that he actually formed, Kenny? I mean,
I think he's got 2 or 3 distilleries. He told his story on the podcast that the probably a couple 150 years ago, the Irish never adopted the new way of making whiskey. The Scottish did, and that's why we had so many distilleries. And I think at one point in Ireland there was only 1 distillery left. So a bit of a fall from grace for the whiskey industry. But I think did they say he was involved in 4, Mark? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was 3 or 4, wasn't it? I think. Yeah.
So no.
I'll do some research on that Botswana diamonds for the next time.
Yeah, it's James Campbell, isn't it?
James Campbell, same guy on Sheffer.
Yeah. So,
I mean, look, to be honest, there's probably a story there, because he's been kicking around the can around there for years. So you wouldn't be doing that if there wasn't some value to it, and I'm sure there is. And I know that the whiskey was exceptionally well received, and he did really well out of it. But they're involved with lots and lots of companies. I think there's Clontarf Energy, there's Arkle Resources, Botswana Diamonds, there's Petrel Resources. So he's got oil in Ghana, which was hugely popular when Tullow exploded after they found the Jubilee field, which become, I think, one of the biggest, fastest producers in known history. When they had that major discovery, that was the making of Tullow oil, for anyone who looks back in the history of it. They've got Petrel, a license in Iraq, which is potentially very lucrative, and I've actually bought some shares in them, so I'm not anti-Teeling. I'm just kind of giving some background. And then the Botswana and the Ghanaian oil and gas place. So I mean, look, they've been around a long time and managed to stay in the game, so I'm sure they'll have their UFO moment too.
Yeah, I mean, Arkle's interesting, because I think, again, that's one of the ones that's in the, it fits into the bottom feeder tag, so it does. And I think I should, obviously Patrick Cullen left Arkle, so that you would think they would need to appoint somebody as a CEO to go and drive the company forward, because they've got some tremendous assets. I mean, the zinc project is just, you couldn't sit it in a better location. You've got Glencore on one side, you have Palace Green, and I think they're just drilling pretty much non-stop all the time. And obviously there is a resource at Stone Park as well. So I think it'll just be a matter of time before somebody comes chapping in John Teeling's front door and says, right, we're taking a 23% stake in Stone Park for XYZ. So I think that will happen in due course. But I think they definitely need, and I'm sure they know this as well, they need a CEO in there to drive the business forward, because it's kind of
these little things that they do end up presenting opportunities if you can be patient enough and you don't get married to it and stuff like that. Because you look at that other one that went and took the Bacanora lithium asset and raised a bit of cash, and that suddenly kind of jumped a fair bit, and it was sort of bumbling along doing nothing for quite a long time. What was it called, Kenny? I think you had an interest in it as well. It was they raised some money for the lithium asset that Bacanora were divesting. Eris Resources.
Eris. Oh yeah, Eris. Yeah, Eris. So Eris was really, really bizarre. So I bought shares in Eris for the gold asset, which is not actually too far from me. And the company seemed to be really focusing in the Lockjay project. Tremendous. Bought shares, happy. And then they come out and announced a reverse takeover, and the gold asset was going quiet again. It was going private again, sorry. So I was like, so it got suspended, but it was only suspended for 2 weeks. Come back to market, first day, I think it went up. At one point, I think it was up 80%. I just banged out my shares. I was like, right, fine. It wasn't the outcome I wanted. It wasn't why I invested, but there was an opportunity laid in front of me, and we just, I just took it and got out. Why wouldn't you? You know, it was.
Yeah,
it was
so they ended up acquiring I think it's a lithium asset in Germany or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, BCN is a ticker for the company. Is it
Bacanora?
Yeah. So, yeah, and that
they were
looks
one of the first companies that really jumped onto the lithium boom about 2016 or somewhere back then. So Bacanora were a private company, and there was a company that Dave Lenegas was running called Rare Earth Metals or Minerals, REM.
Yeah, remember that.
Remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
So basically, REM ended up doing a deal with Bacanora, or Bacanora floated on its own. I think actually the chairman at Bacanora was a well-known old guy who died or got really ill. Anyway, they got to market, and then REM become Cataneo or not Cataneo, whatever it is, CTNA or something like that's the epic code. It's Kieran Mazzario who's running it now, and that company went and sort of took on lots of different things, and it was all popular back then when that lithium and cobalt sort of space exploded. And I should imagine the Eris acquisition was one of those things that was taken on by Bacanora and hoovered up when it was all hot and you couldn't go wrong, because these things were trading on like 100 million, 200 million market caps back then. So they could just go out and hoover up these companies for a bit of paper really easily. So I guess that's where that asset was procured, but I could be wrong. Interesting that.
Yeah, so I'm keeping an eye on the Lochte gold project, because obviously it's going private, but as part of the deal, they get, I think it's £400,000 or euros, I can't remember, but they're near enough the same anyway. So I'll keep an eye on that to see where it ends up, because it'll probably get IPO'd at some point, because it's right next door to Scott Gold Resources, and I must admit, I'd love to go and see that as well. It's not far from me either, and they're obviously building the processing plant there at the moment. So yeah, it'd be nice to see Scotland with a gold producer. It'd be nice.
Well, you wouldn't have to go far to go and get your coins. If you could make silver as well, that'd be ideal.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of silver in Scotland as well, so there is. But again, I think most of it's held in private hands at the moment. There's quite a lot of silver mines. I'm trying to remember there's a range of hills just north of Glasgow. I can't remember the name of them for the love of their money, but I think most of this silver potential is there. And there's also tin and cobalt in Scotland as well. So
I think one of the things that investors don't really realise is that there's mineral-rich locations all around the world, and these things have been there since time began. But geologically, everybody assumes that when you identify a target, that you can, you're suddenly going to be able to transfer that into cash. And I remember watching a program on the BBC, and they run it for a number of weeks, and it was a mine in Greenland that was producing, I think, gemstones and a bunch of other precious metals. And they were actually having to fly a helicopter in to drop the geologists and the mining crew off. And then anytime that they had a tiny problem, it totally screwed up the operation. So I think one of the big problems was, and there was a listed company as well, Angel Mining or whatever it's called at the time, that were involved. And literally, if the dumper truck blew a tyre, there was no spare dumper truck tyre, so they had to ship one in. And for so many months of the year, the sea freezes, so to try and get the dumper truck tyre in on a plane was just chaos. And the government in Greenland, whilst they'd give licenses, the people who were involved in the shipping and the ports and all that, they wouldn't let the stuff come through. It was just chaos. You know what I mean? You think there's lots of opportunities, and there's lots of these really sort of rich locations. But you know what? Sometimes Mother Earth just wants to hold on to it a bit longer. And yeah, I mean, these small operations scattered around, a lot of the time it's because, and this is no different than the Alba thing at the St. David's mine or the Clogeye gold mine and Gwynfinny, is yes, they've got the subsurface rights, and yes, there's been some commercial mining historically, but that mining operation ceased because 4 or 5 guys that were running it couldn't make it last on a commercial basis any longer. And you've got all of this huge acreage and all of these little adits and places that you can sort of get into a mining area, but you don't have the above surface rights. So if it's on a national park in Snowdonia, or you've got a caravan park, or you've got some other really sort of privately held a venture. I mean, are they going to really want to jeopardize their business to let a load of people go and extract the ore that's under the earth? And the simple answer is no. So they don't work collectively or together. But yet there's this illusion that that's what happens. So I don't know. There's lots.
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, the Scott Gold Resources was actually in a national park as well. And I think that took, I can remember Scott Gold nearly getting out of the game. It's probably about 9-10 years ago. And they must have went through like 7 or 8 different submissions to the council or whoever they submitted it to. But I mean, eventually they got that through. But I mean, they had to. I mean, it must have cost millions and millions to get these the planning permission for the plant and actually the production license for the gold. So it's not impossible, but it depends if you've got the stomach for it. I suppose that's the that's the key.
And that's why all these people, they kind of go and they have this view that they can just go and trample the ground in West Africa, and those old West Africans are a little bit thick between the ears, and we'll just go and take the piss and abuse our situation. And unfortunately, the world's waking up to all of this sort of stuff now, and people are conscious. There is more of a focus on renewable energies and looking after the planet that we're involved in, and whether you're a great sort of environmentalist or not, I don't know what your views are on it, Lance, but I mean, there's a bit more of a conscience now, and I think gone are those days where those things are going to be allowed to happen, and therefore it brings more opportunity back into Europe and into a variety of different areas, I suppose, like Wales and Scotland. But having these big land packages and this huge, these great potential reserves and resources, they're just not always enough these days, either. So I think it's a lot of careful planning going to go into getting some of these operations up and running. The opportunities are definitely there, but it's going to be a lot of careful planning needed.
Definitely. But all right, well, I think we've been rambling for an hour.
We're up on an hour,
yeah, which I can't believe. It's just
fucking
going.
Boys, I haven't even got going there. There's a couple of companies I wanted to talk.
I know. Like I say, I mean, you're more than welcome to come back on. I think.
Yeah, look, you know what? I'm probably a bit too. I need to start focusing on the history and stuff like that, because actually it's not really relevant. But I guess
it's just a market musing. It's just 3 guys chatting, and it doesn't need to follow any format or any structure. And if we veer off into politics or environmental stuff or whatever, who cares? It's just an end of the week chat. Just the kind of, it's a pre-beer chat. Doc, that's what it is. That's all we're doing.
Well, maybe what I'll do is we'll get the beer out next week or the week after or the next month or whatever, and actually just sit and drink a little bit, because I'm used to doing these podcasts where it's just me talking, so I am a bit dominant. So apologies, I can't help myself. I'm the only voice. I'm the lone voice normally, so I guess I'm used to just going.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But all right, good stuff. Right. Well, I think it's 5:30 in Scotland and probably 6:30 in Holland. So it's well beer o'clock for you, Mark. So
it is.
Yep. Appreciate your time, Doc, as always. And we'll do it more often, because it's, like I say, I scribbled a few things down, but we never really covered them. But who cares? It's fine. We've
got plenty of time to cover them. It's been good having you on, Doc. Yeah, I think this sort of three-way thing's good.
All right. Well, look, I will actually go for the beer next time, and then if I need to take a piss or anything like that,
we'll just have a break, yeah. or we put our cameras on and we just hold the sign saying, "Oh, I need to go."
yeah. But no, it's good. I mean, look, there's loads of things. You talk about cash shells. You can have a whole session on them, and look, they are popular now. But I am conscious. I back things that are crazy risk and almost stupid, but there's always a rationale behind it, even if it's not apparent. But those cash shells, if we go back and look at this in 6 months' time, people will be flaying us if the market goes wrong and we've spent too much time on it without caveat and risk. They're going to flay you to fuck. You know what I mean? It just isn't worth it. But great, it's the great now, because the market loves to speculate, doesn't it?
Definitely. But all right.
I'm going to get out your hair, gents.
Yeah. Appreciate your time again. And I'm heading down to get some beers right now. So,
cheers.
Anyway.
See you later.
Right,
Enjoy
see you
your
later.
weekend.
See
Cheers.
ya.
I'll
Bye.
do it.
Ta-ra.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with